The South African Digital Marketing Podcast is made in collaboration with Sean Lutz. Coming up in this episode of the South African Digital Marketing Podcast.
When stuff is exploding, and that's internally, if you're sitting with Exco or you're sitting with your consultants, you are always the calmest person.
Does that stress you out sometimes?
The thrill and the fear of working in these types of businesses, but exhilarating.
How do you stay ahead of kind of the marketing space and the marketing strategies that are coming up?
I realize how uncool this sounds, but where the bug for B2B SaaS enterprise marketing landed was
Welcome to the first episode of Season 4 of the South African Digital Marketing Podcast. My name is Terence Mentor, and I'm a digital marketer who's on a mission to meet the best, brightest, and most interesting marketers in the country. Today's guest is Yudhvir Ranchod, the brand director of Peach Payments, a Fintech pan-African company that's based in South Africa. I started our conversation by asking him what marketing actually looks like in his company, and this is what he had to say.
So we've always been a traditionally small marketing team at Peach. So small that kind of in 2020 when I joined, there were only 3 of us, and 2 of us started on the same day in 2020. So, it's one of the great things about building marketing team at Peach is that we've literally started from the ground up. So it's been a roller coaster of nodes over the last 5 years, but lots of highs in that process. So the team I manage, I've got a brand marketing manager that reports into me, and between the 2 of us, we look after all kind of external comms, anything you see in the outside world about who we are, so PR, sponsorships, campaigns, social media, employer brand, all that kind of stuff sits in that team. The broader team involves 2 designers, so a multimedia and web designer, and a more traditional designer. We've got a senior product marketing manager, and then the head of marketing also. So small, fairly senior team, but high on execution.
I was going to say that does sound like quite a lot of senior people, very strategic level of the kind of brains you have in the house at the moment. So do you do a lot of work with agencies to help you do the kind of nitty-gritty cold-face stuff?
Yeah, it's been an interesting evolution, hey, as we've grown at Peach. We had junior people. I think it's the maturity of where we are at this moment and what's needed for the business. As you know, startups change constantly and on kind of orientation and what the goals are. And at this moment, the makeup of the team is fairly senior, and that's because there's a lot to execute, and experience obviously helps a lot with that. And so, I think we're well equipped with kind of the brains trust we have sitting in the marketing team to go and execute. And as you know, in any startup, you're still getting in the nitty-gritty. You're pulling up banners at events. You're doing all that type of stuff. There's lots of fun in that too. In terms of agencies, we're very selective on who we use. Over the years, we've definitely lent into agencies. We did a big brand refresh in 2022. Lent on an agency because we knew we needed the kind of the structure of a big agency to help us navigate that process, as important as it was. And then we've definitely lent on paid media agencies, eventing agencies, all these things that, we're very selective on who can elevate us to who we want to be and where we want to go.
But I do also like that idea that the title is a little bit meaningless in the kind of startup space. Like you're saying, it doesn't matter if you're the brand manager or the marketing director, you're also the events coordinator and the digital marketing specialist and the other marketing specialist as well. Does that stress you out sometimes? Because I can imagine having to kind of manage the matrix, not just of your own spaces where you're working, but also the rest of your team. That feels like a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I think it's the business looks to marketing to obviously set an agenda and to help grow the business and move the business forward. And so needing to wear multiple hats can be stressful. We are, because we're a small team and because we're hyper focused on what you have to clear out the noise and focus on one thing. And so you lean into your experience. I said it earlier. It's part of the things that make up this team at the moment is because we can lean on previous experiences at previous companies and previous campaigns and use that to kind of really focus in on what we want to do and what we want to achieve. So you go into something knowing that something will be left out and you just have to be comfortable with that. But it's not completely out of your comfort zone. So if you need to dial that in, you can be able to bring in that or the expertise at least to help do that.
So a little bit of flexibility in the way you think about your role,
Absolutely.
other people's role, even where marketing fits in into the whole kind of sales business space. Is that something that you've kind of gained from previous roles that you've had? Where do you get that kind of open-mindedness to marketing?
So yeah, listen, I think having that open view of how marketing works in the broader organization and the broader goals of the business, kind of comes back to what I studied. So I studied politics at UCT. I enjoyed kind of being able to zoom out of scenarios and look at the bigger picture, and that's kind of helped me through my career. In multiple facets. I've worked in media companies and financial services and NPOs, and often that kind of requires moving out or zooming out at least and looking at a situation. And it's no different kind of what we do every day in our current role, right? Things move so fast in tech that if you are not zooming out and looking at what's three steps ahead of you, you can easily be left behind. And that's the thrill and the fear of working in these types of businesses, but exhilarating. Like I wouldn't give it up for anything. Um, yeah, and so yeah, that's kind of past experiences have been able to let me understand that there's a much broader picture of how you apply marketing in most businesses.
Because really, I do see this often on LinkedIn where marketers kind of get really bogged down into even something as simple as like this particular AI tool, and that's all we're going to be using. Or the news thing is account based marketing, and we use that term account based marketing for everything. And that's the only thing we're talking about. But it seems to be like people like yourself and other people who are good long-term marketers can, again, like you say, pull out and see the patterns that happen over time, which can be a little bit frustrating if other people aren't seeing those patterns. Sometimes having to justify why we're not rushing in to AI right away, for instance, is a very good it's a good thing to be able to do. I can imagine be quite frustrating.
Yeah.
We're kind of talking about your role as it's developed over time and what you're currently doing. You've been in this directorship position for about a year, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Um, h- and we were talking about the fact that Peach has a very flat kind of leadership style. You and your team are kind of working together across the board. But is there a difference between being a brand manager and a marketing director? Are there fundamental differences between those two roles?
Yeah. So great question. And I guess any kind of marketing leader will tell you this is that if you spent much of your career getting into the weeds and really executing on a daily basis, being able to kind of zoom out from that and hand off is one of the things that is very different in this role. And so, taking a much stronger stance on, I'm not going to get stuck in this. I need to step out. And it's been a learning curve over the year, right? There's some things you just need to get into and some things you need to get out of. And it comes back to the kind of the orientation of how our team is set up. By having a senior marketing team, a relatively senior set of marketers, you're able to confidently say and know that whatever you're planning, whatever campaign you're going into, whatever task you're executing, is that they've been there, they've done it before, and there's a level of trust that you can do in that, and then allows you to focus on, right, what are we doing next year? What are we looking into? We've just, we're in Kenya and Mauritius as well. So that's obviously top of mind. We're going to be moving into a bunch of West African countries now also.
Mm.
And so all these things are kind of on the horizon for Peach. And if you don't think about that stuff now, it very quickly kind of catches up on you. And so I need to improve my French. I need to many, many things to get myself thinking from a Pan African perspective of how we move the business forward and how marketing assists that. So super exciting, but just yeah, lots to think about.
I mean, even I work in a Pan African and Pan European space. Just trying to get to grips with the cultural like sensitivities in a particular country that can take you a whole 6 months to a year to kind of understand why we use this particular word and not that particular word because it has a completely different kind of meaning between Nigeria and Ghana, which to us kind of might feel close to together, but very, very different. How do you then, you mentioned that you're having a senior team kind of allows you to hand off the, I don't say the work because there's a lot of work going on, but to hand off big projects, big issues, big decisions to them while you're kind of looking ahead. How do you stay ahead of kind of the marketing space and the marketing strategies that are coming up? Do you find that you're spending a lot of time? I mean, we met at a conference. That's where we met. Are you doing a lot of those kinds of things, or how are you kind of on the cutting edge of what marketing is doing?
Yeah, so I mean, the pendulum swings, right? Depending on kind of where you focus on from a business perspective. We spent a lot of time um, in the early days of marketing at Peach, looking at at the broad range of businesses that would need digital solutions. We've kind of now swung towards more kind of enterprise size businesses. We know that is what we're really good at, and we're focusing really hard on that. Um, and so what that requires then is understanding what type of technology suits what you want to achieve in marketing, right? A fully automated, great CRM works across the board. But in some cases, what we've learned really interesting in this enterprise marketing space is that one-on-one conversations, in-person meetings, we spoke about this at Marketing Cafe, right? Like it's the
Yeah.
basic that you just go back to, and you say, if you can look someone in the eye and talk to them and really get to understand them, uh, in this moment in time, we found that to be extremely valuable. And
Mm.
so we'll be doing a lot more of that going forward, right? We won't not stop the digital marketing. I know that's obviously your passion. So
Thank goodness.
yeah, you can't say that we live in 2026, so you'd be delusional to switch off digital marketing. Um, but we acknowledging that where we win is in person. And so
Mm.
we focus on that. But then, like I said, the pendulum swings. In a few years' time, it could kind of go back the other way, and it's a full-on digital approach again. So it's this moment in time that kind of determines everything in your life.
And that really does mean that you've got to keep your, I hate this term, but the finger on the pulse of what's happening with your particular set of prospects and customers, right? Because you got to know when they're like, we're tired of seeing your faces. We don't have any more face-to-face meetings. Just send us the details in an email, or we'll catch you on the gram with enterprise. I doubt the gram is where you're catching them. And I guess this is where B2B and kind of enterprise marketing, if we can maybe get a bit into the weeds with this, because this is my little space that I like to work in.
Mm.
This is where it becomes very difficult and interesting because it's very one-to-one. There's a lot of that getting into the room with one or two people and having a conversation with them. And like you're saying, figuring out who they are as people and what their needs are. Um, is that a marketing a marketing endeavor, or are you pulling in other parts of the business to help you do that? Because that is very consuming just with human resources and time.
Yeah, absolutely. To answer your question, so yes, you have to. Sales and marketing now need to feel like you guys are joined at the hip. And if we've learned anything, is that staying very close to your enterprise sales team or sales team in general is critical, because you need that
Mm,
constant feedback, right? You are testing things, messages, graphics, websites, landing pages, research with an audience that you need feedback from. And your front line is often those salespeople who are taking those items to your prospects. And so hearing back from that's really, really obviously critical to know whether what you're putting out there, what you're creating, is of
mm,
value to the people who have, in this world, very specific um, interests, somewhat way more technical than your average person. And I'll go back quickly. It's and then the kind of the beginning of
mm,
the marketing journey as well, is that like I said, I started in politics, and there's these moments that I think happen, in your studies and in your career where kind of things get accelerated, right? Politics, I was doing it as any 18-year-old knows no idea what they actually want to do. And so I enjoyed history and politics. And so started doing that and enjoying myself, enjoying my first year. And I remember this distinct, and I'll give away my age now. Um, I finished a philosophy test and in my first year, and it's in the afternoon, and my cousin phones me and he says, and this is the day, this is before WhatsApp, this is before smartphones, this is like Nokia 3310.
really showing your age.
And I
Yeah.
really checked my age, right? And he's like, hey, guess what? And I was like, what? He's like, someone just flew 2 planes into the Twin Towers in America. And I was like, whoa. And I think like everyone, the whole world kind of goes, watches TV that night. And in that, it kind of, jumps off like this interest in politics because it just got red, white
Mm,
hot, for the next kind of 8 years. And so there are these moments then like that really accelerate your interest in something. And so that was kind of where the politics thing came from. For
mm,
B2B marketing, I think, tried kind of working at media companies, at NGOs, and I enjoyed a lot of that. And I realized how like uncool this sounds, and but where the bug for like B2B SaaS enterprise marketing landed was kind of when I
Sorry.
completely recognize how uncool that term is. So
Yeah, yeah. But you got it. You got the bug for B2B SaaS.
yeah, I mean, listen, dude, like never in my life would I have thought. But I joined a company in Stellenbosch actually in like 2016, so almost 10 years
Mm,
ago. And it was my first kind of tech company that I work for. And that really was just like, whoa, this is a whole new world of comms and messaging, but also distilling very, very complex solutions for average people. Right? A lot of your decision makers
mm,
aren't super kind of technical. You're talking to CFOs and CIOs, and they have a very good understanding of business, but technically, and so it's distilling very complex solutions that they need in their lives, right? And so that kind of happened at that stage. And then when I went to Yoko, that really kicked off in that marketing doesn't need to be white papers, stock imagery, kind of boring landing pages, right? It can really be, especially in this B2B SaaS um, in space, it can be like cutting edge, exciting, human, storytelling. And so that brought, and then moving over to Peach, where I think very rarely you go into a business being able to build a brand from the ground up and establish business. Um, and so like taking all those learnings over time and kind of bringing
mm.
that into this marketing space has been a joy. Like it's very rarely you get to do something and build something from the ground. And so yeah, it's to be learning constantly where we are and what we need to do and what we need to win. But yeah, that's a very long story to kind of tell you that
Yeah.
I enjoy B2B sales marketing.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense because you do have to kind of see the jumping off points for every single one of those parts to understand the whole of what makes up a marketing director, especially of a newish brand where you're developing kind of from the ground up. And I just as you're talking, I was just thinking about this idea now that boring equals death. And that's becoming more and more, we're talking about being ahead of the curve of marketing strategies. And especially in B2B, it's very easy to kind of get stuck in the white papers, get stuck in the stock. Oh, my favorite is the same kind of stock image videos that get put onto any kind of conference wall. And you're like, I'm not sure which company this is because they all look the same. And really try to get yourself out of that space of being boring while still realizing that these are business people who take their work very seriously. How do you how do you manage that? How are you able to keep the seriousness of we're dealing with a lot of money here. This is a serious thing, and we need to be attention grabbing. We need to be people. We need to be people who are seen.
Yeah, listen, I tell the team this all the time, right? We are decision makers in businesses. Do we like cool things? Do we like great ads? Do we like great content? Of course we do. So why do we expect the people that we market to not be the same? Right? So that's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, it's just there are so many tools at our disposal at this point. Never in history have we had this much information being able to influence really, really cool stuff that we are able to create. AI now has kind of supercharged that, right? And we kind of
Mm.
went headfirst into it last year this time. We've been using avatars and creating demo videos and doing some really cool stuff with it. Um, and to your point, like even as amazing as AI is, we've seen some businesses just use it in the most generic way. And then you're missing the point almost. You have this
Yeah.
great tool, but you've misused it. So it looks like everybody
Yeah.
else now. So that's
Yeah.
a great question, right? I think, and it comes down to the people who are in the business, right? The people who are in your team, in your marketing team, are they
Mm.
those ones that suit this environment of breaking things, failing, seeing things don't work, improving? Are you of that mindset? Number one. Number two, do you work in a business that is excited by that stuff and wants to see those things, is willing to take risks, right? And then number three, do you have it in you just to be like, hey, I'm taking a gamble on this idea, right? Obviously there's a cost benefit analysis and you sit very carefully and you think about, the benefits of that. And I'll use an example. Just before obviously we started recording, we were speaking about SA20, right? That just concluded
Mm.
yesterday. And so we sponsored we sponsored the Joburg team over the last 3 seasons and went into that also as a relatively small very, very tight on budgets and the way we approach most marketing, to doing this, like the sponsorship of a cricket team. And again, like I said, all three of those things. Do you have a team that is willing to take the risk and think very,
Mm.
what is the most exciting way we can extract value and awareness out of the sponsorship? And then a lead and a business executive that is saying, hey, go for it. Right. Like, think about it, go execute. This is a massive opportunity. Let's go. And those two things worked really well. And we went into it. I remember we had 3 weeks from kind of December 5th in our first season till the tournament starting maybe a month later, January 10th or something, to plan an entire campaign. Online, in person, hospitality, the works, because we kind of signed quite late. So that taught us everything we need to know about the type of makeup and the personalities that sit in your business. I'm being serious. Like, it was when things were dialed up to like 100 during the festive period. So all suppliers are closed. No one wants to work. But here you are on Christmas Eve on stand up, putting together ideas and executions, right? And so, yeah, listen, that's kind of, I'm trying to get to the point here, is that like, it's the makeup of multiple things in the business and the appetite
Yeah.
for being able to take risks, but also managing that risk and knowing that, this could work out or this couldn't work out. And I think SA20 is a great example of backing a horse that has done exceptionally well. I think they've grown something like 34%, 40% year on year in viewership. The tournament has been sold out almost every game this season. We constantly get people saying, hey, I saw you guys on the jersey. And it's still surreal to watch TV and see your logo, your company's logo on a shirt. Like, we're not a massive corporate. So this really is like exhilarating on almost every level. And so, yeah, it's being able to kind of navigate the excitement, but also seeing that, right, there's something here that if you execute really well and you think about it carefully, this can turn into something great. And I think we've been on that path now.
And just about the SA20, if you are watching on YouTube and you're like, why is Terrence's face so red? Is something wrong with the camera? No, I was watching the final yesterday and I was stuck in the sun for
It's
about
hot in
four
Cape
and a
Town.
half hours. It was rough in Cape Town yesterday, and I bought my tickets late, so I couldn't get the shaded side. Anyway, there was a lot of laughter when I came home, and my wife saw the tan line all over my face. Really, but to your the actual point you're making, I can also see how when you have maybe a team or a leader who is willing to take risks, educated risks, as you mentioned, but a business that isn't, or vice versa, there could be some real tension there, and maybe that's not the best fit. Um, what I would love to get to know though is when you're talking about how you maybe take a risk, or you're taking a new strategy, or you're working with the new sponsorship deals that you're working on, how do you communicate with the rest of the business why you think that the strategy is valuable? How much input are you taking from the business, and how much are they just kind of trusting you to do your thing?
Great question. And I think every marketer in every business struggles with that. It's also one of the reasons why I struggled in corporate when I was there, because the leeway to take risk is so small that it didn't suit my personality.
Yeah.
But yeah, convincing the business, I think you have to get runs on the board. I mean, let's go back to our cricket analogy now, right? Since we're talking about cricket. Getting runs on the board. And it's like, going process by process and showing the business and taking them on that journey. 2022, we did a massive rebrand of the business. We had to be a future forward facing tech business that wasn't for the here and now, but wanted to be around in 10, 15 years' time as a Pan-African business. And how does that look today? How do you think about how you show up now that is paving the way for that? And so, that process, when we brought a lot of stakeholders into that process, sometimes too many, but you learn that as you go along also, because especially creative, a lot of people have opinions and it's very subjective. But you learn this and you get that process, right? Then you've got people now loving the brand, right? Like, really. And that's what you hope for when you go into this like B2B SaaS world, right? Like, it's such a far removed thing from people, and creating love for digital brands is difficult. You know, people love Spotify, people love Airbnb. There's a lot of work that has gone into that to make sure that like you feel that, it's these types of brands that you kind of want to head towards. And it's simple as that, man. It's like, it's bringing people on that journey, having regular showcases about what you've done, what you've achieved, backing that up 100% with data. Everything has to be data-led and data-driven. And it's being able to motivate your team, your business. I think that's one of the great things that a great marketers do, that I've worked under and seen, is that they're able to bring the excitement with the data. It's the kind of the place that we sit in, right? Where a lot of it is creative and inspiring, but a lot of it has to be numbers driven. And great marketers are able to kind of merge those together. And the outcome has been people being completely inspired and wanting to partake in campaigns or get involved that are not part of marketing.
And a really good marketer can take bad numbers and make them look. No, that's not what we do. We tell the real story. Just I've yeah, we don't pick and choose the metrics that make us look good at all. That would never be something that I would do. I've taken so much of your time. I just have kind of one last question, talking about maybe marketing leadership. It does feel that for a lot of people, their career trajectory really does look like you got to, move your way from specialist to manager to director to wherever, CMO. Should everyone have that thought in their head? Like, is marketing leadership for everyone? And how do you know if it's not for you? Maybe that's a good question to ask, because you've seen it.
Great question. Yeah. No, I don't think people should feel like they need to follow this train or this trajectory of what it is to be successful. I think we've learned that over time. I've seen that in multiple instances where you have great specialists who don't want to deal with the anxieties of a team member, or having to plan career paths, or managing up, managing down. Like, people don't, and rightfully so. It's completely your choice how you want to do that. Yeah, I just think, listen, it comes in leadership. I know a lot of people say this, but there's a lot of empathy involved. At its core, if you are able just to keep quiet and listen, is very often what is needed. And that's most time what people are looking for. I feel this certain way because someone said this. I feel this way because, this project didn't turn out the way I needed to. How do I fix it better the next time? And so if you have that in you, where you're able just to sit and listen, not respond, and this takes time to kind of get good at, right? Like, that is a good trait to show you that, okay, maybe you can do this in the long term. It's being calm in the storm. I think anyone if you're in PR, especially PR comms, I often tell my brand marketing manager that, like, because we handle PR, it's like you have to be the calmest person in the room always. Like, when stuff is exploding, and that's internally, if you're sitting with Exco or you're sitting with your consultants, you are always the calmest person. And it's these types of things where you're able to regulate that, while in the inside you're dying, but on the outside you're showing it's just fine. How do we get through this? We work through this and then kind of debrief afterwards. It's those kind of character traits that are really good. And I think it's also just having a worldview. It comes back to what I said earlier about, like, what I enjoyed about studying politics and just what life serves you as you kind of mature, right? Is that you're able just to zoom out and see what's important. And I was sitting with in a previous job with the GM, and that at a big financial services company, and the layout of the floor was they were in kind of these glass cubicles that they sat in, and then they're the floor of like 200 people in open desk format. And so he and I were just sitting talking about leadership, and he was telling me what he's learned over time, and what he says always sticks with me, because he was like, listen, yes, he is fortunate to have worked through the ranks, has got to a GM level, appreciative of everything he does. But he often just looks out on the floor and realizes that there are people there who are better athletes, better fathers, better people, better writers, that exist sitting right outside their office. And to think that you are better than anyone, and to think that your ego is boosted by just your position, is your fatal flaw. And so that's always stuck with me, in that you just need to remember who you are, and that you rely on a team to make yourself feel good, your career to grow, and your business ultimately to do really well.
That's it for this episode of the South African Digital Marketing Podcast. A big thank you to Yudhvir for the conversation, which you can keep going by connecting with him on LinkedIn. Please remember to subscribe to this podcast so that you don't miss out on the next episode, which is coming out in a couple of weeks' time. I'll put the links to do all of that in the show notes. Thanks so much. This was the South African Digital Marketing Podcast.